Twin Peaks is a television series originally airing in 1990, following a TV movie pilot the year prior that acted as a standalone story. It follows the aftermath of the murder of a homecoming queen, Laura Palmer, and how this tragedy affects a community. It is also my favorite work of fiction ever made. What makes Twin Peaks and the character of Laura Palmer stand out so much is that she's not just a framing device or a vehicle to move the plot forward. Throughout the series, we continuously learn more and more about her and her life. Despite never appearing alive once throughout the original run, she feels wholly present. Then, in 1992, a year after the ending of the original series, David Lynch brought us back into Twin Peaks with Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, which was a prequel movie set a week before the series, detailing the final days of Laura Palmer's life. Finally, Laura Palmer is no longer a ghost haunting the narrative. We don't have to learn about her through people with biases and ulterior motives. Fire Walk with Me displays Laura and her life as it really is, and it is every bit as heartbreaking and devastating as it sounds, as she's sexually abused by her father Leland, while her mother turns a blind eye, hooked on drugs as an escape, and coerced into prostitution. But before we dive deeper into it, let's briefly talk about Ethel Cain. Ethel Cain is the musical project of Hayden and Adonia. Hayden began uploading music under the Ethel Cain name in 2018, but all we will be focusing on today is her debut album Preacher's Daughter, released in 2022, and the following prequel album, Willoughby Tucker, I'll Always Love You, released just last year in 2025. While her other music outside these albums carry over many themes and sonic ideas, these two records are what the character of Ethel Cain is explored through. For a quick rundown, in Preacher's Daughter, we follow Ethel Cain, the daughter of a preacher, who could have guessed, in a small town in Alabama, as she grapples with her identity and place in the church, the abuse she suffers from her father, and the recent loss of her first love, Willoughby Tucker. She then meets and begins a relationship with Logan, an abusive asshole who rides a Harley and is just involved in a bunch of not so good pastimes. But despite this, Ethel feels drawn to him, and most likely due to past trauma is able to convince herself that Logan does actually love her. Plus, she sees Logan as her ticket out of her hometown and a way to move forward with her life. This ends with Logan being killed in an altercation with cops after a failed bank robbery, leading Ethel to be forced to run away as she was an accomplice. This kicks off Act 2 of Preacher's Daughter, and this is where she meets Isaiah.
I met you there in Texas somewhere on the side of the road in some torn up clothes with a pistol in my pocket.
Isaiah invites her to join him on his journey to California, as he also desires to get away and start a new life. After the uplifting and triumphant Thoroughfare, which is my personal favorite song on the whole record, alongside Hard Times, but I genuinely cannot listen to Hard Times too much, that shit hurts so bad. The album takes a big tonal shift, becoming even more tragic and horrifying than it already has been, if you could believe it. When they make it to California, Isaiah begins to drug Ethel and sell her into prostitution, using her trust and love for him against her to coerce her into doing what he wants. This all culminates with Isaiah murdering and then cannibalizing Ethel Cain. Preacher's Daughter is one of my all-time favorite albums and a truly haunting narrative that tackles, among other things, the exploitation and abuse of young women, generational trauma, and the evil that men do. Does that sound familiar? Now, I want to make it clear before going forward that I am not accusing Hayden of stealing from Twin Peaks or anything. These are both works of art that I love dearly and also happen to tackle similar themes, which is why I want to talk about the similarities and celebrate both works. Plus, it's worth noting that according to Hayden herself, she had not seen Twin Peaks at the time of writing Ethel Cain's story. The plot and themes in both Twin Peaks and Preacher's Daughter are just unfortunately relevant and common. And these are similarities I handpicked for this video. Both works explore plenty of other themes too. While I'm mostly talking about Preacher's Daughter here, I wanted to quickly bring up the prequel album Willoughby Tucker, I'll Always Love You, as that isn't without its Twin Peaks influence, though this time around be more direct and less about themes. Firstly, the opening track Janie, which is about Ethel's best friend Janie, and the shift in their relationship after Janie gets a boyfriend. I first listened to Ethel Cain following the release of this album, so this is the first song from her I ever heard. And I instantly loved it as it is incredibly Laura and Donna coded. Likely intentionally so in my opinion. Then following that is Willoughby's theme, which is this beautiful instrumental starting with these gorgeous classical piano keys until it builds up and releases with these swelling synths that make me feel like I'm ascending. It's also very clearly a nod to the legendary Laura Palmer's theme. And finally, for these little Easter egg similarities, with the release of the lead single Nettles, Hayden stated that she had hunted down the Yamaha DX7S, which is the same synth used to compose much of the Twin Peaks score, including Laura Palmer's theme. And honestly, Willoughby Tucker's sonic direction as a whole just has crazy Twin Peaks vibes. Fun trivia detour aside, let's get back into the more pressing matters. With the groundwork of both Preacher's Daughter and Twin Peaks laid out, I want to talk about how Laura Palmer and Ethel Cain both go about coping with their respective trauma, and how both of the narratives treat it. Despite having commonalities, the fate of both characters are almost opposite parallels of each other. In Preacher's Daughter, I feel as if Ethel Cain's fate is told almost as a cautionary tale about constantly avoiding and running away from your problems. She is constantly trying to escape and not confront, which ultimately leads her to her murderer. In Twin Peaks, on the other hand, Laura Palmer does not run. The years of torment and abuse finally do her in, and she confronts Bob, aka Leland, head on, which then leads to her murder. So with Ethel Cain, running leads to death, and with Laura, staying and confronting leads to hers. Adding to the list of coincidentally alike aspects, they both have sort of epilogues from the afterlife. In both cases, adding slight glimmers of hope and relief to these wholly devastating stories. Now, I'm going to take the easy way out here and say I don't have a definitive take on how both endings want you to feel regarding confronting and running away from trauma. Both characters are put in situations arguably worse than death, so much so that their death in both is treated as a sort of strange release, and neither have any support system whatsoever. Their mothers turn a blind eye toward the abuse. Every man they meet just wants to use them. Besides Willoughby Tucker, we love him. And I think it's completely based on a case-by-case basis, on the quote-unquote correct thing to do in these scenarios. Plus, saying what either should have done instead starts to fall into blaming territory, and the blame should never be on the victims. I don't want this to come off as entirely bleak and nihilistic. Nihilism sucks ass, and I don't think either work wants you to feel like there's no hope either. That's why the final scene of Fire Walk With Me exists, same with televangelism and some bleach flies. I've wanted to make this for a while, but never felt like my writing was strong enough. And I still don't think it entirely is, but I believe I did my vision for this in my head justice. I hope to do a lot more of these deep dives in the future. I'll probably come back to both Ethel Cain and Twin Peaks at some point. There's just so much I could talk about in both. Thank you so much if you stayed around to the end. Let me know your thoughts on both Twin Peaks and Ethel Cain down below, and stay kind.